Chapter 17. Walking After Midnight. July 1st, 1998. Raccoon City. Irene steered her cruiser down another darkened side-of-district street, idling past cookie-cutter homes with astroturf lawns and two-car-attached garages. She was mired in the sleepy hours between last call and the morning commute, that dead space peppered only by the occasional drunk driver or domestic case. Not that there were many domestic calls inside a district, or in any of Ward 2 for that matter. 3 a.m. in Berlin was the time and place where most police officers contemplated what they were doing with their lives. What kind of greater good were they achieving by guzzling coffee and rolling past the sleeping normals? There must be bad guys doing something illegal somewhere, like out in the Arklay Forest, maybe. The cruiser's brakes squeaked as she stopped at an intersection she could have easily rolled through. Her Crown Vic was the only car on the road, and would likely remain that way for quite a while. But rules were rules, and she supposed she should set an example, even at this ungodly hour. She was rolling again. The windows were down, and a nice breeze blew through, carrying the scent of herbicide and grass clippings. The odor mingled pleasantly with her takeout smell of warm bread, meat, and potatoes. On the whole, it was a vast improvement over a cruiser's regular smell: body odor, cigarettes, and stale coffee. She should consider ordering Emmys and driving around with it more often. A pair of headlights greeted her as she turned down Older Street, a westbound taxi. They neared, and the cabbie tipped his hand off the A-pillar and gave the slow nod. Irene responded with a two-fingered farmer wave, the sleepy acknowledgement between two souls trapped in graveyard shift purgatory. The taxi's tail light shrunk in her rearview mirror. Its passenger side brake light was out, and the driver didn't make a full stop at the intersection. Her fingers played at the switches for the overhead lights, and she considered citing him for it, before just as quickly dismissing the idea. She was hungry, tired, and ready for a break. Besides, she'd get him next time. She took another deep breath, filling her nostrils with the rich perfume that wafted through the squad car. She was near dead with boredom and fatigue, but her appetite seemed to be doing well for itself. She restrained the urge to tear into the bag's contents and picked up the radio mic instead. "Dispatch Oak, this is Baker 3-9, over." She could hear the weariness in her own voice. 3-9, go ahead. 3-9, I'm going code 7 in 10 minutes, over. Before the dispatcher could give his 10-4, Joe's voice crackled through the radio. Negative, Baker 3-9. You are to acquire 2 coffees, large with cream and sugar, and are to code 3 to Victory Lake Campground Gates. Rendezvous with Baker 47, over. She smiled and keyed the mic. Unable to comply, 47. Officer's partner currently owes her 6 coffees. Officer is unable to afford his habit. The Oak Street dispatcher cut in. Copy your code 7, Baker 3-9. Enjoy your supper. 3-9, negative on code 7. Officer's in need of coffee. Irene laughed. She may have considered his request, but there was no negotiating with that bag of takeout. I'll see you in an hour, Joe. Baker 3-9, out. She reset the mic and turned down Warren Street. Up ahead, an unused traffic light blinked a steady red. She rolled on. Century-old facades closed in and then reeled past. Even downtown was lifeless at this hour. She felt her eyelids droop. Solo graveyard shifts were the worst. 3 more days. 3 more very long days. 5 minutes later, she swung the patrol car into the curb lane and bumped to a stop across from a drab brick of mud-colored stone and soot-stained mortar. She grabbed the takeout bag and slid out of the car, locked up while keeping one hand on the soggy paper bottom. She glanced at a set of second-story windows. The bedroom light was on, and the living room flickered with unmistakable television blue fireworks. She crossed the street, eyes set on the lighted entrance, and frowned to herself, already feeling the dirty reek of humanity that festered from within. She had managed to tolerate apartment life during police academy, but as soon as she got hired by the RPD, she went house hunting. The only creatures meant to live stacked on top of one another were chickens, the most vile and filthy things in God's creation. Apartments were unnatural, plain and simple. She hopped over the curb with one hand cooking under the hot takeout bag. The doors stood ahead of her, glass buttered over with fingerprints, brass pull handle tarnished and brown. Valley View Apartments was written across the glass in chipped gold leaf. What genius had thought of that name? There was no valley to speak of, and the only view it offered was of the Northland's industrial smokestacks. She turned to the rows of buttons, each labeled with a typewritten paper strip in some various stage of sun damage. She pushed 206. The speaker on the panel screeched like a snow goose with a belly full of birdshot. A half-minute passed, and there was no response. Irene pressed the button again and held it, counting to 3,000. At last, the speaker crackled with a distorted male voice. "Hello?" Even through the 5-cent speaker, she could hear the owner's southern drawl. "RPD, sir, please open up." There was a moment's pause. "That you, Irene?" "Yeah, it's me." "Come on up." The electric lock slid with a sharp snap. Irene swung the door open with her free hand and stepped into a lobby wallpapered in nicotine yellow floral patterns. She wiped her boots on threadbare carpet, managing to kick up a dormant funk that smelled like horse piss and road salt. She wrinkled her nose and headed for the stairway. She took the creaking steps 2 at a time. The walls were patched and mottled with handprints of all sizes. She groaned and made a point not to touch the banister waxy surface, turning her eyes to the fly-specked light globes. She started down the second-story hallway. Forrest was holding his door open, shirtless and bleary-eyed. A slow smile spread across his face as he noticed the large Emmys logo on the takeout bag. "Hey, Irene." He yawned and tugged at the seat of his jeans. "What you got there?" "Supper for me, breakfast for you." She stepped into his apartment and handed him the bag. "Shoot, you didn't need to do that." "I wanted to. Besides, I owe you." "You don't owe me nothing. Come on in." Forrest cleared the junk off his coffee table, set the bag down, and shuffled into his kitchen, slipping on a sleeveless t-shirt he had snatched off his recliner. "I'll grab us some drinks. Pop a squat." She walked into his living room, noticing the fleece blanket that lay in a tangled ball around the base of the couch. His pillow was crammed partway between the cushion and armrest. "I didn't wake you up, did I?" "Nah, I've been awake for a bit." She had the distinct feeling that he was lying to her, but decided not to pursue the subject. Did Forrest sleep with the lights on? What do you want to drink? I got water, 7-Up, or orange juice. Oh shit, that's right, no Coke. She gave herself a mental kick for not ordering herself a coffee. She knew very well that Forrest didn't drink caffeine. So damn much had been slipping past her lately. God, what she wouldn't give for 10 hours worth of dreamless sleep. I'll take a 7-Up. She swept the stray peanut shells off the sofa's cushion and settled into its orange-played hideousness. Forrest returned with cutlery and a pair of plastic glasses. He handed one to her, and she sipped the foam off the top, letting the soda fizz and burn its way down her throat. Hopefully 7-Up would provide enough of a sugar rush to keep her awake. It's good to see you, but where's your little partner at? He flipped the TV to a ball game and sipped his drink. She could clearly imagine Joe's bristling reaction to Forrest's little comment. She smiled and began emptying the takeout. Dave Ford pulled roadblock duty up at Victory Lake. His partner got suspended last week, so they paired him up with Joe. Forrest raised one eyebrow. Why didn't they just post you and Joe up there, leave Ford by himself? She had no answer for that question. Did it have something to do with Joe's upcoming promotion? No idea. She handed him a styrofoam container and grabbed the other for herself. They wouldn't give me biscuits and gravy to go, so I hope you like beef melts. Ain't nothing wrong with a beef melt for breakfast. Forrest already flipped the container open and was tearing into his sandwich with enthusiastic bites. She wondered how often he ate. She unwrapped her own sandwich and nibbled at a corner, closing her eyes and savoring the rich taste. She rarely allowed herself to indulge in restaurant food. It was a delicious but decidedly unaffordable luxury. She would have to wait until her next review and the pay raise that came along with it to enjoy it on a more regular basis. So they ate in groggy silence, talking little, content with watching the Marlins get trounced by the Expos. Halfway through her beef melt, she wiped at her mouth, yawned, and allowed herself to sink into the musty warmth of Forrest's spring-worn sofa. It was so nice here. Would they miss her if she spent the last 4 hours of her shift snoozing in the dingy comfort of Forrest's chicken coop? She yawned again. Her eyelids fell lower and lower. Just this once, so tired. She opened her eyes. Who was she trying to fool? Of course they would mind. Shit. She'd have to suck it up. Once she was done with supper, she'd swing by the Flying J and grab coffee for herself, Joe, and Dave. All she needed was a bit of a kick to finish this shift, and then she would go home, undress, and sleep like the dead. Like the dead. More like I'll sleep 3 hours, wake up, and pace my bedroom like a chained dog. I need to get some sleeping pills or something. With a heavy sigh, she stretched and watched Forrest brush scraps of his breakfast out of his whiskers. It still puzzled her how someone who was so meticulous with his work could be such a slob in his personal habits. She glanced at the framed photo that hung between the American and Confederate flags that served as his curtains. From behind the dusty glass, Private Speyer stood at attention, clean-shaven and hard-eyed, flanked on either side by similar-looking stone-faced boys. He looked so proud, so squared away. What had happened? He'd changed. It's what people do. No, that wasn't entirely true. After dealing with humanity at its worst for nearly 5 years, she had decided that people didn't change. They were damaged. Every day she waded through the human wreckage that passed through the RPD's doors. Drunks, thieves, junkies. Hell, even the cops were damaged. Dave Ford hit the bottle after killing a pup during a botched domestic disturbance call. Police work's constant parade of carnage permanently skewed Joe Gutierrez's sense of humor. And now, 4 years into her career, she decided to stop sleeping. Was it the Connor deaths that disturbed her? Or was she still grieving over the loss of Anne or her father, 14 years after their deaths? It doesn't matter, does it? I'm screwed up either way. 4 years in, and she was cracking up, losing it. What was she going to do? Doc Matheson billed the RPD directly for any counseling he provided. Would her name be on the bill as well? The RPD was a relatively small force. Either way, word would get around that she was going crackers. What kind of effect would visits to the PD shrink have on her advancement within the department? Shit, this sucks. She looked back at Forrest. He was staring at her with his small, keen eyes, curious. A question was forming behind those eyes, a question she had no intention of answering. So, what's happening with those 1059s up in the woods? It was the first thing that came to her mind. The what now? He said. Irene sighed. She needed to go easy on the cop speak. Those deaths in the Arklay Forest. What's happening with the file? Forrest's eyes hardened to nail heads. He huffed and shook his head like a riled bronco. File? There ain't no file anymore. The case is closed. Didn't you hear? Irene leaned forward and matched Forrest's frown. I'm General Patrol. They don't tell me anything. Besides, everybody at the PD is clammed up about it. They took Stars off the case? Yeah, they took us off all right. The venom in his words was unmistakable. As soon as the coroner listed all them bodies as animal attacks, that detective, what's his name, Silverman, just shrugs, kicks us off the case, and fires the dossier off to the Forestry Service. It's bullshit. Mindless worry. You're kidding. If I'm lying, I'm dying. And I'll tell you another thing. That wasn't no animal attack neither. Unless a wildcat started wearing size 10 dress shoes all of a sudden. Irene blinked. What? That quarry where we got those 2 kids? We found all sorts of shoe prints around the bodies. And not all of them were from the victims. It's just like at that accident you were telling me about. Buckets of blood, shoe prints, and no bodies. I got no idea how that coroner could just up and ignore all that. Captain Marini is madder than a hornet though. He tore into the chief something fierce. Irene cupped her head into both hands. Well, what a screw-up. On one hand, she couldn't believe what she was hearing. On the other, it was a seamless fit with everything else which had taken place in that foul patch of woodland. Everything was being glossed over with these deaths. That rollover was dismissed altogether. The wallet and shoe prints turned into dead ends. The right people weren't asking enough questions, and complicated problems were being passed off with childishly simple answers. It was bad police work. Even she, still relatively green, knew that. Of course, Geezer Thomas was looked upon as a sort of forensic oracle. The man spoke the truth and commanded the respect of every single RPD staffer. He was definitely not one to shoot from the hip. So if Geezer Thomas had listed those 1059s as animal attacks they must be. Her mind returned to Madison Connor, the girl's rain-slick face, frozen in a silent scream. She recalled her thoughts that day. This wasn't a bear attack either, don't fool yourself. She still felt that way. Joe agreed with her. It seemed that Forrest and the rest of Stars Bravo felt the same, and yet the authority on the subject begged to differ. Who was right? Was anyone? She sighed and shut the lid on the remaining half of her supper. Their conversation had snuffed out her appetite. How would a beef melt taste reheated? So, what rules out an animal attack? She asked. Well, wolves will hamstring their kill. Bears and big cats will use their claws. None of them bodies looked like they had claw marks or were eaten from the legs up, did they? None that I saw. Us neither. It was then that she decided that visiting Forrest had been a bad idea. Her mind had been in revolt already. This news would only stir the pot further. So, if it's not wolves, bears, or mountain lions, what does that leave? She asked. Forrest ran a hand through his tangled hair and then leaned forward so his elbows rested on his knees. There's only one animal I can think of with no claws that wears size 10 dress shoes. Irene was speechless. One hand snuck its way up to her mouth. You think? He shrugged and leaned back. A cloud of dust billowed from the recliner's backrest. To be honest, I don't know. It was Sullivan's idea. Personally, I can't see anyone being crazy enough to do something like that. At least, I hope there ain't. True enough. Oh God, that's bad. That's big. Holy shit. She exhaled and ran her fingers through her ponytail. What fatigue she had been feeling had been successfully chased away. She wouldn't be sleeping anytime soon. So, what do we do now? We? Okay, what does stars do now? Forrest chuckled, but there wasn't an ounce of humor in the laugh. He was staring at her with his grey eyes hard and angry. What do? We sit in our asses and watch the bodies pile up. Because whatever's happening in those woods is going to keep happening. Front page, Raccoon Herald, July 1st, 1998. Citizens pan police response to Arklay Forest deaths. Ben Bertolucci. A growing number of Raccoon City residents have begun to question the Raccoon Police Department's delayed response to the multiple deaths that had recently taken place in the Arklay Forest. The group, headed by Samuel Connor, brother of victims Darius and Benjamin Connor, has been pressuring RPD. Page A2, Raccoon Herald, July 1st, 1998. 4th of July celebrations relocated from Victory Lake. Alyssa Ashcroft. In the wake of recent deaths near Victory Lake and the Raccoon Police Department's cordoning off of many roads and trails west of the Arklay River, Raccoon City Special Events Coordinator Deb Perrin has announced that 4th of July festivities held at the Victory Lake Campground Auditorium for the past 17 years will be relocated to the Cider District's Memorial Park. Raccoon City Cider District Homeowners Association chairperson David Rayner states that